Welcome back to the latest edition of the Inside Line IndyCar podcast presented by IndyStar. I'm sports editor Aaron Ferguson. He's IndyStar motorsports insider Zion Brown, back from beautiful Long Beach, where the forecast called for anywhere from 80 to 60 while you were out there. And I couldn't help but think about it as it was mid 40s here.
Yeah, I don't think it got to 80 at any point. I think we were low to mid 70s as the high throughout the weekend. But yeah, I didn't realize it got so cold here. And then I'm back and it's warming back up. But this is perfect.
Yeah, a treasured life you live, just like that of Alex Palou, who yet again won another race, first time at Long Beach. And for large stretches of the race, it did not seem like it was going to go that way, but it came down to a pit stop because of a caution of quote unquote mysterious debris that you wrote, which makes me wonder. Like when I read that, I was like, it made me think of like a friend daring somebody to do something to see what would happen, like go run onto the field to stop the momentum of the game. Like that's what it reminded me of. But
Someone on Twitter, I can't remember who, joked that Chip Ganassi himself threw some carbon onto the track to cause the yellow.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, who knows? Chip wants to win, you know that. So no, I'm just kidding. I don't think any of that is true. But the caution happened, and Alex Palou and his team proved why Alex Palou and his team have been so good for the past 5 years, really. And they won again and edged Felix Rosenqvist, who had an excellent weekend by all accounts until that pit stop and caution. And Alex Palou, another win, another trip to victory lane, and once again the series leader.
Sure is. Took that title back from Kyle Kirkwood, who another top five for Kirkwood, finishing fourth still every race he's been in the top five, but now Palou has surpassed him with those 3 race wins. And yeah, when it comes to that, I tried to get an answer on where that carbon came from. If it came off of somebody's car, like was it we thought it was. It looked like it might have been from Rossi's car, but from what I saw on the replay, it looked like Rossi just hit it, and that's what kind of spiked it into the middle of the street. I think it was already on the road, just kind of close tugged up on the wall, rather than just coming straight off of Rossi's car. And Rossi got to the top 10, which makes me believe that he had all his parts on his car, right? I feel like if something had come off, that would have hampered his ability to get all the way up from 10th. I think he started 18th. So I don't think it was from his car, but it was just odd. And then, I mean, yeah, more details you can read the story on it that I wrote, but Felix was just like devastated about it, right? And who knows whether he would have been able to hold off Alex Palou fair and square for those last 30 laps, but it didn't even come down to that. It came down to the pit stop. And between the quicker pit stop and Palou and that CGR 10 team having the better pit position, just because of them being on the pole back in Barber, they got to pick all the way up toward the front. There was just nothing really that Rosenqvist was going to be able to do in that moment to hold Palou off. And then my question coming into today was, can Rosenqvist keep the race pace throughout the race? As soon as you're passed by Alex Palou, you know you're not catching up, right? That's just how it goes with that car. Unless you're Kyle Kirkwood. He's the one guy that you're like, okay, maybe that 27 car could do so if he's right behind, but Kirkwood was multiple spots behind, so that wasn't a possibility for him. So, yeah, Rosenqvist was searching for a second career win. Would have been just the second that Meyer Shank Racing has ever had outside of that 2021 Alio win in the 500. Outside of that, they haven't won a race, and they were in position to do so. They were in position to sweep the weekend. They won the IMSA race as well on Saturday, and that caution kind of threw a wrench in those plans. And Alex Palou, surprisingly, like I think we talked about last week, for the first time winning this race and his third of the year.
I think it was interesting. There was kind of like some admirable respect between the two post race too. Like Rosenqvist, you could tell he felt like he had him. You know, he said I was 2.3 seconds ahead, or felt like he could probably stay ahead if that caution didn't happen. But also acknowledged that like they knew it wasn't going to be a clean race, and he credited Alex and specifically his crew in that quote moment of pressure. And so I thought like that was very admirable. But then you flip around and Alex right away was like, man, I don't know that we would have gotten him. It would have been very, very tough for us to get him today. So I think that was just like very fascinating how that kind of turned around, and also speaks to just like where the series is at, where Alex Palou is inevitable. I keep saying it, like I feel like I say it more offline than I do like on the show or anywhere publicly, but like it just really feels like that every race. Alex Palou is inevitable, and he has these moments of like it's just a really special thing to be watching him, because there's going to be moments of greatness almost every race that you almost just expect it, and that's a hard standard to live up to, and he continues to do it.
Absolutely, just time in and time out, and I do want to credit Alex Palou, outside of the caution and what his team did during the caution, for the pass he was able to make very, very early in the race. I forget, it might have been like 2 or 3. The pass he made on Pato to get behind Felix for that entire basically 50-lap stretch that it was. So Palou put himself in a position early to eventually make that pass, whether it would have been an on-track pass or in the fashion that it happened in the pits. But they found this is a track where there's not a lot of places to make passes, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But there was only one on-track pass in the top 10 through the first 30 or 40 laps, and it was that first pass that Palou made on Pato Award early on. And so that just doing that put him in a position to get past Felix Rosenqvist, and then the caution kind of opened the door for that number 10 car to fully show what it has shown throughout the last few years.
Yeah, and Rosenqvist saying, I was 2.3 ahead or whatever. He led 51 of the first 58 laps. That caution comes down in 57, and then Palou 3.97 seconds crosses the finish line before Rosenqvist. So truly a race-altering pit stop. You feel for Felix, but he was excellent all weekend. I mean, you mentioned it. Even Meyer Shank in the IMSA race was excellent. So they have to be feeling good coming back to Indy. We've got the Grand Prix. I don't have that counter. I've got my 500 counter up instead.
It's technically 2.5 weeks from today.
Yeah. Open test also next week. So, they have to be feeling pretty good right now. On the flip side, Will Power was not, to put it lightly. Very frustrated, very upset, very angry. He, of course, Will Power on that caution, right?
Yeah,
on that caution, hits AJ Foyt crew member Ryan Martzik, the left rear tire changer for Kyle Collette, and was given a drive-through penalty for it, which took him to last of on-track cars at the time. And so he dropped down to 24th, and then I think vaulted up and finished at 19th. So made a few spots up, but he was another guy who, like, I was really impressed with him early in the weekend. Like, it seemed like he was finding his footing a little bit more at a track where he has a lot of experience. We talked last week about his success earlier in his career at this track, where he won it twice and had 3 poles in between. So obviously, of course, he's familiar with, but scary situation for Ryan Martzik and I'm sure his family and his teammates. But you received good news shortly thereafter.
Yeah, Martzik, no broken bones, which was, of course, the concern at the beginning. And the fact that, he finished changing that tire in that moment, and then they were able to get him off on the gurney, but he was conscious and alert when they got him off. So that was a good sign just to start, but then you still wondered about his bones. But no broken bones in his feet. They did, I don't know if he still has them on, or, I haven't followed up enough to know how it is, nearly 48 hours later here, but they put the larger ace bandages on his feet just to, prevent some swelling. And he was able to come back here to Indy on the team's chartered flight. So I guess best case scenario after getting your feet run over, right, is that, you're conscious, you're alert, and nothing's broken. But yeah, just an unfortunate situation. And Long Beach, a place with it's a tight pit lane, like being out there, even behind the pits, right, where I kind of would roam during practice and qualification toward the end of the race. It is just tight. It is a lot different than pretty much every other track, where there's a little bit more room there, and there's not enough room to go 3 wide. And Will Power is trying to evade cars, but I think they kind of gave him the go ahead to get out to pit lane a bit early, and then it led to this situation. And it's just another like disappointing and really just like what in the world happened here situation when it comes to Will Power in this first 5 races with Andretti Global, right? Like, if you listen to the podcast I recorded with Will Power last week, I asked him about just, hey, how do you make sure you put together Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Because pretty much every race there's been a problem during 1/3 of the weekend, one part of the weekend. And Friday and Saturday were very, very good for him. Saturday, we all thought he was getting into the Fast Six, and then Scott Dixon on the very last lap somehow got in, and that kind of messed up his chances to win this race and to maybe get to the podium of this race. But still, it seemed like a pretty easygoing start to the weekend until that happened, and we're looking through 5 races now. He's only been in the top 10 once. That was in Arlington, and that was when he finished 3rd, and he's sitting 14th in the overall standing. So it's odd because if you talk to Kyle Kirkwood, if you talk to Marcus Ericsson, they will tell you so much about how much Will Power has helped them and how much guidance he's kind of helped to give them. But for Will Power himself, it just hasn't gone smoothly. He's the lowest in the standings of those 3. Ericsson sits 12th. Of course, Kirkwood is in 2nd. And I think all things considered, I would just call it a disappointing weekend for that team as a whole. When, we're talking about it last week, and it's like, okay, could this be like Arlington 2.0, where they kind of have 3 guys in the top 4 or 5 spots in the positions? And then Friday, like I said, Friday, it looks great. They all looked great in practice. Saturday, not so much. Ericsson doesn't get to qualify as high. Even Kirkwood starting P4 felt like a bit of a disappointment. I just talked about how Scott Dixon was able to etch out Will Power. And then you get to Sunday morning, there's a hybrid and a cooling issue in Kyle Kirkwood's car. They were able to fix that, and I don't think that affected him at all during the race. But still, once again, finishing 4th in this race for him, it's good, but it's like, he was the favorite to win, right? We all thought he was going to be 1st or 2nd probably in this race. And then Ericsson also having a hybrid issue and having to retire from the race and finishing dead last. Like, all things considered, it's like you come into this weekend thinking this is a weekend where Andretti could really, gain some good ground at the championship standings, and maybe Kyle Kirkwood could hold on to that championship lead. And then you in the weekend, like looking at it, like all 3 drivers are kind of finishing lower than they should have or probably could have.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. It's fascinating because, yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like the sport has been, or this series in particular has been so interesting in that, like, it's been a lot of Alex Palou because he just doesn't make mistakes. But like you look at Andretti and what they've done, and like you talked with Kyle earlier in the weekend and was like, you're the betting favorite here. And he should have been. He should have been. Alex Palou had never won there. Kyle had won, 2 or 3?
Yeah.
With Dixon in between. So, like, he should have been the favorite. What his car did in Arlington was impressive. And that was why he was my pick. I thought I shouldn't say – I didn't think it was going to be like a runaway, but I thought he had a very good chance. Even with qualifying P4, like I still thought he would have a very good race and could find his way to the front of the pack. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting spot the sport's in. Single car qualifying changed again. Or I shouldn't say it changed again, but kind of reverted back to or they brought it back from Arlington. So you go fast 12, and then the 6 who advance, going from fastest to 6th fastest, you got to pick where you wanted to try to qualify in the fast 6. So, like, if you had the fastest time, you could choose to go first, which is really what everyone did until they got to Pato O'Ward, who chose to go 6th instead of 5th. Not that he had much of an option, but I did think it was an interesting conversation, though, because their Arrow McLaren's point was, we're hoping that the track conditions improve because of IMSA before it. And so they're like, we're hoping there's a little bit cleaner track. Whereas if you're going first, theoretically your tires are going to be warmed up and your brakes are going to be good. But that didn't necessarily prove to be the case. I mean, Pato he was 2nd right alongside Rosenqvist on the front row. And so I thought the strategy behind it was interesting, but I don't know that like the viewing product was really that much better. That was just me. I don't I don't know. I didn't
You
love
don't think you don't think it was that much better than Arlington or than the pass system?
I think the pass system.
Okay. Yeah, I'll jump in here. I know Marcus Ericsson had kind of snarkily talked about it afterwards. He didn't make the Fast 12 or the Fast 6. Obviously, if you don't make the Fast 12, you don't make the Fast 6, but he was just kind of, happy that it wasn't a situation where Alex Palou, who got to go early up and they didn't get the pole because Ericsson, so many people kind of and myself included, I'm not gonna act like I wasn't somewhat a legend of this of happening in Arlington, but so many people in Arlington were just like, well, yeah, he won because he got to go first. And so that's why you need to change it. The IndyCar changes it, and Felix Rosenqvist, who I believe went third, right, wins the pole instead, and Pato, who went last, is right next to him on that front row. So I know Ericsson was kind of, defensive of what happened in Arlington and saying that just because I went first, that's not why I won. And I guess that was kind of proven right here. I don't know. But yeah, I asked Pato about it after qualifying, just why they chose to go last instead of fifth. Like you said, not that much of a difference, but they just wanted to collect all the data and see, where other cars were faster or slower and what points in that single lap. And so they wanted to just make sure they saw all five guys ahead of them. He said that had they been first or second in that order, they would have gone first or second. So that was just kind of a result of where they finished in the Fast 12 and deciding that they felt like sixth was better than fifth for that reason. But it is an interesting strategy. I messaged you as it was happening. I really enjoyed like the draft they did where they went up to all the strategists on TV. I was expecting it to just be like they send it into race control or they send it into the officiating board and then we just kind of get the order right after that. I didn't realize they were going to have Kevin and Jack and Georgia go up to all the strategists one by one to figure it out. So that was fun. I like it. I do think it's better than the last system. I still want those sector times on TV. I know they did the ghost car graphic, which was better than what we got in Arlington, which was nothing. So it's better than that, but I still want, the times listed if possible. But I like it. I think it's a good way to, bring some fun. And I know I've spoken to a few owners and even the drivers about it, just like getting these sponsors on the car for basically a minute plus straight, where you can it's the only car on track is your car, and you can see, if it's Palou this weekend, the Open AI sponsor just right, it's up there for over a minute. The Felix Rosenqvist, the Sirius XM, Green Day, like, it's like those sponsors. I'm sure they love it more than anything, and then the owners love it too because they can pitch that to sponsors. But I liked it. Once again, still some work to do, but I'm curious to see as a sample of it grows how the strategy changes from race to race. So curious to see how that works once we get to Detroit at the end of May.
I will say, and we bantered about this in our team's chat, the best part to me was the reactions on the drivers' faces as different events happen. Like, especially you mentioned Palou, like it was like a moment of like, I just think Palou is so buttoned up, like not in a negative way. Like he just plays everything very straight. Mm-hmm. And like you could see like his real live reaction, not some like, we're going to do fine. Like, it's okay. Like he was just like, no, I really wanted that. And like my favorite was Malukas, who I think is 21. So like sometimes I forget how young some of these drivers are.
Malukas is 24, I believe.
Okay, 24. To me, still younger than me. So, like I just like, it was so funny to like watch his reaction when Palou kind of like bobbled it. He locked up there toward the end, and then like Palou still edged him. It was just kind of funny to me to see the reaction. So, like from that standpoint, I do think it was a little more entertaining, and it showed like I think one of the coolest parts of storytelling, and this is like, TV is a very different type of storytelling, but I thought the way they did it was so well. It was like you humanize these people a little bit. Like you get to see them, not so like they're in their element, but like he's a little relaxed. Like he's not in the cockpit of the car. Like, you're seeing raw emotion, and that's, to me, that is compelling video, compelling television. And so I thought Fox did a terrific job of that. I do think like, in terms of this, though, like Rosenqvist started out front and Palou was right there. He was third in row 2. and it was those two a lot of the way. And I think you mentioned this earlier, but like street and road courses, it kind of feels like it once qualifying happens, things might be settled for race day. Does that, I don't know, like, do you feel like that's an issue that IndyCar may have? Like, they have a good mixture, I think, of like oval, street, and road courses, but and even Formula One is kind of suffering from this a little bit. It's like, I think I talked to some Formula One fans and they're like, yeah, it just kind of gets a little stale after a while. So, like, do you think that we have an issue with this, or is there a way that maybe IndyCar can improve race day on street and road courses?
Yeah, and so if you look at the 4 races that have been on street and road courses so far this year, in 3 of them, the winner has been somebody from the front 2 rows. The only one that wasn't was Arlington when Kyle Kirkwood, who we already knew throughout that weekend he had one of the fastest, if not the fastest car. He made it all the way from 7th to win that race. But other than that, it has been follow the leader-esque throughout these street and road courses. And I think the main issue with it is the hybrid system that we saw introduced in the middle of 2024. It's given everybody a similar level of speeds on these speed and road courses. And there's not the difference between cars on a week to week or even day to day basis that you would want or hope. And so I think as we get to 2020, I don't expect IndyCar to make any more drastic car changes, regulations, or anything of that nature with the engines or anything in the next year and a half, right? I think at this point, after changing it up in 2024 and introducing the hybrids, I think that was the last change made to this 3rd generation car. But I think once we get to 2028 and we get to the new chassis, the new car, and maybe a new engine manufacturer, who knows, that there has to be serious consideration into the hybrid system, and not getting rid of it necessarily, because I don't think they would do that, but just figuring out what are the correct regulations for it, and if the street and road course racing that we've seen basically in the last 2 years is what we want, is what IndyCar wants from street and road course racing, or if it really needs to be something that's looked at and altered so that passing is more of an opportunity, or there's more opportunities for passing. And that's something that could happen, right? I talked to Kyle Kirkwood after this race, and he was fine. He was 4th place. He was fine with coming in 4th. Once again, I just mentioned that he's been consistently in that top 5, but he was just like, I didn't really have anything to do. Like, there was just no room, no real opportunities for him to pass. Graham Rahal, who had another really strong weekend, finishing 8th, he had similar complaints about it. Like, it's not something that just fans are mad about because they're watching from home and they're bored. The drivers themselves are a little bit bored with the fact that they can't really make the passes they want to, especially up at that front, if they don't qualify up there. And you want to reward, good qualifying, obviously, but like, where is the line? Where is the balance? I think that's a serious question that the series has to look at in this year and a half, 2 years, or whatever it may be, until we introduce that new car.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also, if you qualify up front, you're not passing many people either.
Yeah.
Especially if you're, number one.
Right. It's just about, whether or not, this is a good system or not. Yeah, like if you look at somebody like Christian Lundgaard in Barber, who did make his way up from 10th to 2nd, but even that felt like such a task for him to do so that he would have had to play everything perfectly to win that race, and that one pit stop ruined his race. And then you contrast that to Phoenix, which I think you could argue has been the most exciting race so far. And it's been most exciting, 1, because Alex Palou got taken out early, and 2, because we saw Will Power start in 25th and then have a legitimate chance to win that race until he and Christian Rasmussen made contact with each other. And so Joseph Newgarden, who I believe started 2nd in that race, still won the race. But without that contact, it would have been either Power or Rasmussen. Rasmussen, who I think started somewhere in the 10s. I can't remember exactly where he started in that race. If without that contact, they would have been 1-2 in some order. And so, like, oval races, still allows for those opportunities. And obviously, oval racing has always been easier to pass on. But just in general, it's like, is it too difficult to pass near the front of street and road course races? And then also, I think Nathan might have tweeted about this. These 3 races leading up to the 500, if you're trying to garner excitement for the 500, they're beautiful sights, right? Barber, Long Beach, and then just racing on the road course in IMS. They're beautiful sights. They are 3 races that it is extremely hard to pass at. And so if you're trying to like build up that excitement and say, hey, IndyCar is fun, IndyCar is great, and then you're like, watch these 2 or 3 races before our biggest race of the year, and then you watch the races and you're like, this is it, like one or 2 passes made it in the front, that's it. I'm just not sure if altogether those things, put together are the right way to do things where IndyCar is at right now. So like I said, this is a long term, like nothing will be changed by Detroit or anything, but this is a long term issue and something that I think just needs to be monitored over the next year or 2.
I am going to ask Nathan if he would rather have Iowa or Long Beach in April and see what he says. Because I'm fascinated. I know there were many reasons why I think people were excited to see Iowa vacate the calendar. It had kind of just become stale from a promotional entertainment standpoint. And also, I just feel like people weren't super excited about the race in general to watch it. So there was a lot of angst about the schedule with that when it was decided that Iowa wouldn't be back, and there's debate about it. But would something like that be more attractive though, in terms of like an actual racing standpoint? I don't know.
Or we had this time, you have to fit in the open tests, which are coming in a week, but we have this time, could we fit something in between Long Beach and the Indy GP? Like, I don't know what the answer is.
Freedom 250? Maybe not this year.
We're gonna do that yearly, or like
try to solve a solution here, okay?
Hey, by the way, I don't know what the passing will look like there. I mean, that's a 7-turn course, right? Like, I have no clue what that race will look like from a racing perspective. And we don't even know how many laps that race will be. That's another thing. People have argued that Long Beach either needs to be made shorter or longer, so that these strategies on when to make your pit stops are mean more than they do right now, where basically it's fairly easy to make it a 2-stopper and you get through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think race strategy's always been something that's a little fascinating too, because I'm not to that level yet where I can like formulate a strategy on my own. Like, I need to hear Will and Townsend and James talk about it to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I understand a little bit. But yeah, like that is an element of IndyCar that, and really racing in general, that is just fascinating to me, because I know they've tried to like switch it a little bit with like, here's what Firestones you have to run, and here's how many sets, and here's what they have, like the different requirements. And so I know they've tried some different things to, I don't know if scheme the system's the right way to word it, but like they've tried different things to influence that. And I don't know that it's making a difference or not, but certainly something that, I don't know, it just popped in my head.
Yeah, it's a lot to kind of consider as far as just what the correct rules are, and I think IndyCar itself is still trying to figure that out. I like the regulations with the tires specifically if we're going there this year. I don't think that's been much of an issue. Some may question, however, if the tires take too long to degrade. And that sounds odd, but like that's a thing, right? You look at this race in Long Beach. We were all like, okay, the front 4 guys all started on the reds, and then I think the next 7 guys after them all started on the blacks. And we were like, okay, well, maybe Malukas and Scott Dixon, who are 5th and 6th, will have a chance to really get a good bit of cushion once Palou and Rosenqvist had to pit with those red tires on. But I think Palou and Rosenqvist lasted, I think, barely, almost as much as those guys on the blacks did, right? I think Malukas and Dixon pitted like a lap or 2 after them. Like, it wasn't that much of a gap afterwards. And so, like, I don't know, if your red tires aren't degrading, your alts aren't degrading in the way that they're supposed to degrade. And credit to Felix and to Alex, guys that have been around long enough to kind of know how to save their tires and save their fuel. But it's like, if they're not degrading in the way that they're probably meant to degrade, we've got to make some alterations to this to really make it a noticeable difference in how long you can last on one tire versus another. We mentioned Arlington a few times here. Will Power in Arlington made his alts last I forget how many laps exactly it was, but it felt like forever, right? He was on a whole different strategy than everybody else and got to the podium by making his alts last. And it's like, again, willpower, very experienced, knows how to do that better than a lot of younger drivers may. But it's like, is that supposed to be how this works? Probably not.
Yeah. Fascinating stuff. Stuff that we can continue to discuss as the road course comes into view here in a couple weeks. There was a push to pass incident where it was enabled on the lap 61 restart. Nothing came of it legally, like nothing changed, I should say. Marcus Armstrong did pass Santino Ferrucci, but because they used similar levels of push to pass, they decided not to do anything with that. But I do think that's an interesting segue into the fact that we have the independent officiating board and we now have a managing director in Scott Elkins who is going to oversee the board beginning after the Grand Prix. So we'll go 6 races without him, but I'm sure it takes some time. You want to learn the system, you want to learn the people you're working with and whatnot. So I guess I don't really have a good feel for what this means. We knew it was coming at some point. They wanted to have it in place before the season started. We've gone this many races without him, so why not? What's one more?
Yes, what's one more? And I'm sure he's been getting his training in, and I would assume he'll be in at the Indy GP. But it's also like, do we really want this to start at the 500, right? With the new, and it's just a role. It is not the main. It is not, it is the managing director, but it's not like the rules are changing or it's just going to be something completely new once we get to the 500. But I mean, we were told that an MDO would be hired before the season began, and then even I was told in Arlington that following Arlington one would be named, and it's been over a month since that, and we just got that news earlier this morning on Tuesday. So it was just odd timing. Obviously, they did want somebody before May. That was announced in the press conference early on. I believe that was in February, that they really wanted to get somebody in before May. So they have been able to accomplish that. But it's just like very, very weird timing. I wouldn't want the 500 to be my first race working in this role personally, but it will be that way for Scott Elkins, and he has experience. Worked in Champ Car for the last few years of that, and then helped kind of seal the merger and kind of get that transition right into IndyCar before he went to work for IMSA for a few years. But yeah, it's weird timing, but it is what it is. You mentioned the push to pass incident. I hate that this is somehow still a thing and that it continues to come up. And again, it's like a timing issue where it's like, why it took, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours after the race. I was driving back to LAX for my red eye when the notification came on whatever happened there with Marcus Armstrong. And apparently 12 drivers, right? It wasn't just Marcus Armstrong. 12 drivers used push to pass illegally on the restart because it wasn't disabled the way it should have been. So it's just like, why is this still an issue? 2 years later, 2 years after the Newgarden McLaughlin situation in St. Pete. I'm just at a place where it's like, fingers crossed that we don't get any ridiculous technical inspections or any sort of ridiculous penalties happening in qualifying in the 500 here in a few weeks. But it's just like, I don't have complete faith that we won't have any of that just because it's been so all over the place. And I'm curious to know if Scott Elkins will be meeting with team owners at some point here in the next few weeks, because I know there was a brief meeting that was done, or I think it was like kind of brief one-on-ones that were done after St. Pete with the 3 existing IOB members and any owner who wanted to talk to them. I don't think it's been done every race. I think it was just after the opener in St. Pete. But I'm sure that everybody would like to, sit down and speak with Scott Elkins before we start qualifying and before we start, the race on the 24th for the Indy 500. So I'll reach out to try to see if I can figure that out. But I'm really curious to see if that's going to be something that's done, or if it's just kind of like, hey, he's going to show up and that'll be that.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Like, obviously, last year was my first 500 working, and you worked the 500 the year before, but last year was crazy with the modified attenuators on Joseph Newgarden and Will Power's cars, and also the car that was at the IMS museum. Are you going to go check Palou's car?
Sure. I mean, you would assume it was checked last year, but maybe I should. Maybe I should go down there here in the next few weeks and just make sure everything's good on that 10 from last year.
Yeah, I mean, they supposedly checked the previous winner too, but anyway, I mean, you also had it was Marcus Ericsson, and then also I think Prima also had tech inspections. Yep. So like, it is pretty important. It's your most important race on the calendar, so I understand wanting to have this in place for the 500. I think that's very responsible, very good. I think the feedback you had early on about the IOB was pretty positive, though, from drivers in the paddock.
I would say it was more of a mixed bag. Some thought it was stupid, just the way it was set up and kind of dressed up. I think, in some of the conversations I've had throughout the season, it's just there's still some question about just how independent is it. How much is it associated with Penske Entertainment still? I think there are questions around that. And yeah, it's all over the place as far as, hey, we're creating this new thing, but like we're keeping on Kyle Novak as the race director and all these other positions. And I'm not here to call for anybody's job. I am saying it's just like odd, like how it's been marketed as this new thing. It is something new and different, but it's like, how different is it? And then how much of an impact will that have? And again, we still have a situation like Sunday where somehow push to pass was enabled in a time it shouldn't have been. And it really didn't affect the race, but like, what if it would have, right? Earlier today, an hour or two before we started recording here, Kyle Kirkwood tweeted that he joking, he was like, I can confirm I wasn't one of the 12 cars who used push to pass. And like, that's good, right? But what if he was? What if he was and he somehow got up to the front of that race illegally? Like, what happens? Like, are we doing the thing with Joseph Newgarden where it's like we're stripping a win from Kyle Kirkwood in that situation? Like, it's a mess. And I hope it's been cleaned up. I hope that this Scott Elkins hire kind of puts everything to bed in a way, but I just don't know if it will. And we'll see what happens in May here. I'm not sitting here to predict any issues with the race and officiating, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if we saw any, just because of how out of sorts it's been and the way that this hire was supposed to happen 2 to 3 months ago, and it's just now happening today.
Yeah, let's predict who the IOB is going to be out to get in the month of May. Yes. Our next segment, brought to you by Team Penske. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. No, I don't know. I do understand, though, like the thought process of like, how independent are they when Penske Entertainment owns the whole thing? Like I don't think they're ever going to shed that,
And by the way, I still have not gotten a direct or like a confident answer on what it says on the IOB's members' checks. I'm just putting that out there. I mean, it may or may not still say Penske Entertainment.
Who else is going to pay them, though?
I'm just saying.
Fox?
Maybe I don't. If your check says one thing, how are you independent from that thing?
Right. No, I agree. That's you were more direct than me, which is hard to do sometimes, but no, like that's my point. Like, how are they going to be like Penske wanted an independent operating board to like create distance, but at the end of the day, I could go into a whole side rant about Virginia Tech football right now in the Sugar Bowl. But I'm going to spare everybody from that because we did get some other Indy 500 news, and that is Jacob Abel is confirmed to be in the field. And so that brings us to what, 32 drivers confirmed? And yes, the likelihood of getting to 33 is very high, I would say. I think Doug Bowles has made that very clear that there's going to be 33. Whether there's more than that, we don't know. So we have 32. We're going to have 33. I believe it. Don't know if it's going to be from Foyt. We know that Andretti has said they're not going to put in another car. Where else could this come from? I mean, the team formerly known as Prima, we don't know what's up with them yet. Obviously, a lot of hurdles to clear there. Just, I don't know. The other interesting thing is, like, who's going to show up next week? You know? Like, who's going to show up and be in a car?
Yeah, that is very interesting to me personally. If we will have 33 drivers / cars there, it seems like Abel is on pace to be there. So I believe we'll have at least 32. And then it's like, what is there open? Like, I don't know. Personally, I'm not really sure. We knew news was coming down the pipe, obviously. I think there's quite a bit of irony that they're putting him in a number 51 car, which is the car he drove last year, or not the car he drove, the number that he was driving for the Dale Coyne Racing car last year. For whatever reason, Dale Coyne Racing got rid of that number this year. They're using 18 and 19 for Hauger and Grosjean. So
we know why.
That number was open, and Abel Motorsports decided to use it for Jacob Abel again. So yeah, he'll give it another go, try to qualify after being bumped last year, and after being dropped from Dale Coyne Racing at the conclusion of last year. And this is fairly self-financed operation. The primary sponsor right now, this could change. I was told this could change, but right now the primary sponsor on the car is Abel Construction Company, which is the same ownership of the Abel family and Bill Abel as a CEO. And so that's what it is right now. Once again, it could alter as far as who is the main primary sponsor on this car, but they're just a self-investment here. They wanted to get in the race. They were in it a few years ago with RC Anderson, Abel Motorsports, that is, and Jacob Abel. It's looking to actually be in the race this year after not being able to make it in last year.
I will say I walked the grid on race day last year, and as I was coming off, like behind the pit boxes even, I just saw Jacob walking, and I was like, I don't know why, but I was just like really surprised to see him there. And I was just like, hey, Jacob, good luck next week. Like, I didn't know what to say in that moment. But like internally, I was like, man, like this guy clearly, like, you want to be out there, obviously. Like that's what you dream of doing, right? But I was like, man, like he still had a smile on his face. Like he was still like kind of in the moment and was there. And so like I certainly don't root for outcomes, but like I think I can root for people. And so like for his sake, I hope he has a better showing in May. Like that, it was really tough last May because it was just like even going into bump day, I was like, well, I think we all know, but especially when he got on track, and I was just like, man, poor guy. Like I feel so bad for him, but that's life, man. You can learn a lot about life through sports, and what a comeback story it would be if he could make the field this year.
Right.
Well, like if he doesn't make the field and there's only 33, then I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, it's also odd because I don't know if odd is the right word, but like as far as what to expect, I'm not really sure. Just because this team has only been in the 500 once, and that was 3 years ago at this point. He hasn't actually driven in the 500. And so like you look at all the other, one-off guys, and it's like it's Connor Daly and Elio and Takuma Sato. It's like these drivers who we have a history. Hey, this is kind of the range where he may usually finish. Of course, Elio's won 4 times, Takuma twice, and whatnot. And it's like we don't know what Jacob Abel looks like in the Indy 500. And outside of one time 3 years ago, we don't know what this team looks like in the Indy 500. Obviously, we know last year didn't go well for Jacob Abel. But yeah, it's kind of just a wild card as far as what to expect because we have no real data to base it off of outside of last year and what he did in practice and qualifying.
Zion, I was perusing the IndyStar TV IndyCar YouTube page, just looking at old videos, and I was like, Will Power sat on a couch, and I'm sitting on a couch that looked very similar. But I also noticed this week at Long Beach, you had some guests walking behind you during your recap, which, as someone who has worked in TV before and knows all too well how that goes and how distracting that can be, I thought you maintained your composure very well. But just a plug that you guys can go to IndyStar TV IndyCar YouTube page for all of Zion's recaps from the different days during a race weekend. Also, Will Power interview with Will Power on there, Kiffin Simpson. You're going behind the scenes in the paddock and bringing people, different thoughts and different reaction from around the paddock, which I think is great. And also, you may see people who walk behind his recaps. You just never know.
Yeah. No, that is true. I met that is one thing I wanted to say about Long Beach with my first time being there. In comparison to the other races so far this year, you could really tell that those people knew and followed IndyCar at a rate that was higher than the other races I've been to this year versus the other races. It's like some of the people really cared about IndyCar, some people were just there for the experience, which is fine. I'm not like I think the word casual and like the degradation of casual fans is like in sports is crazy. Like sports need casual fans, right? It's so like I don't think that's a problem. People that just come just to come, but in Long Beach specifically, I ran into several people who like knew me by face, right? And they're like fans, and they're like, "Hey, I've read this or watched this," and just like you could tell too when they're following around the drivers and trying to get pictures and autographs. They were real fans of whoever they wanted to, show up and be around. So very dedicated fan base it is out there in Long Beach. Of course, that's a race that is always well attended, and it was again this weekend.
And now you get to stay home for a little while, which good or bad, I'm not sure. But, the weather's clearing up. It's going to be warmer. So, can't be too bad. Thank you for bringing the warm weather back with you. We appreciate it. But I don't know. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to get off your chest?
I do want to pat myself on the back. A, for picking Alex Palou. And B, if you read the joint article me and Scott Horner put together before every race, it's a long article, but you get to the middle of that, and I make predictions every week, and I picked 2-1, obviously, which I did on this podcast, and then I also said a surprise finisher or surprise race could be from Felix Rosenqvist. I said he could challenge for his first podium in a couple years, and he did that, and he almost won the race, which I guess in a way would have made me wrong, but I did want to pat myself on the back just a little bit.
Well done. Well done. I got 2 of the first 3, and now you're the expert has didn't take long, did it?
Yeah, well, I'm curious when we do our Indy GP preview, will either of us be daring and have the gall to pick against Alex Palou, or will he win that race yet again?
I mean, I've been pretty on the record about not picking Alex Palou for, the vibes and just wanting to be different, I have nothing against Alex Palou. Like, I just, you pick the guy who wins everything. It's like being a Yankees fan or something. And I can't do that. My Red Sox fandom won't allow me to do that. So, although the Sox have 4 world titles in my lifetime, so I can't be much of a complainer there.
See, pick with your heart, man. I guess maybe your heart's against Alex Palou, but
it's not against him. It's not against him. To be clear, we don't need to be spewing narratives around. I like Alex. He's a good guy. He loves Indy, from what I've been told. So, and he's getting ingrained in Indy sports culture, which I think is great.
That is true. Yeah, when he's here or not back in Spain, he's showing out.
Yeah, Alex, come talk Indy sports with us on the pod. That'd be awesome. You're an IU guy. You would love that.
Yeah, no, look, man. Alex won his fantasy football league from what I heard last year.
So did I.
There we go. See, you guys have that in common. Although I will say, in talking to the other folks at Ganassi who are in said fantasy football league, they believe he got some outside assistance. Those guys weren't completely convinced that he did that just setting his lineup and making the right signings and whatnot on his own. So I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying.
Open AI, maybe?
Maybe.
All right, this is like beyond silly season. This is just silly talk at this point.
It's beyond the curtain.
Yeah. This is like office talk, man. You want to know what life's like in a newsroom as we both sit not in the newsroom. This is what it's like, though. So, all right, let's wrap this up. We've got stuff to do. You've probably got to unpack or something. I don't know. Prepare for next week. More important things than talking to me. But we appreciate everyone for being here. This has been another edition of the Inside Line IndyCar podcast presented by the IndyStar. Find all of Zion's work at IndyStar.com. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube page, IndyStar TV, IndyCar. In-depth, behind the scenes, recaps, reactions, interviews from the track. Really, like, what are you doing if you're not subscribed? There's so much goodness there. Zion does a terrific job. His poise and charisma, even when people are making funny faces in the background, is terrific. So we appreciate you all for supporting us. Please tell a friend to tell a friend about us. And yeah, we will talk to you guys later. Have a great day.